Finding your identity and figuring out who you are requires you to be honest with yourself and be true to your heart. That might sound like a lot of work, but when you discover who your authentic self is and learn how to be authentically you, you'll find that you have a much greater sense of personal identity, which will actually improve your mental health and well-being. So let's talk about identity and mental health. When we talk about the idea of identity, it's about how you define yourself and how your different characteristics add up to create your overall perception of yourself. So we human beings have been fascinated by our own ability to think for millennia, and the 17th century French philosopher René Descartes summed it up beautifully when he wrote, "I think, therefore I am." What you think about yourself is an enormous part of your identity, and we have the ability to shape our lives for the better by taking the time to understand who we really are as individuals, and then making decisions that allow us to live authentically. Our identity plays a huge role in our mental health because it's about our ability to both understand who we are and how satisfied we are with who we are. So what you think about yourself and your place in the world will have a direct impact on how you experience this thing we call life. Being able to identify and challenge those things that threaten our sense of who we are and how we fit into the world is what matters most, because that is what allows us to live truthfully. So here are a few practical ways to do that, starting with know who you are not. Sometimes you might struggle to work out who you are, and I'll talk about how to do that in a moment. But I've found over the years that a great place to start in finding your identity is to figure out who you are not, because very often that can tell us a lot more about ourselves than simply trying to just rack our brains to work out who we are, and it's often a much easier place to start. Being completely in touch with what you don't like or what doesn't serve you can be just as important as knowing what you do like, because it can then help you to make life choices that are in your best long-term interests. So for example, I've discussed previously in my podcast that while I'm good at managing people, and I did it for many years in the corporate sector, and I worked really hard to get into management, it turns out that managing people is not good for me. Having to juggle all of those expectations and delivering consistent results, and then also having to discipline people and even terminate them sometimes, no thank you, it's not for me anymore. All of that just sets off my anxiety and it makes me feel really horrible about myself. So you need to think about who you are not or who you don't want to be, because that's going to help you with my next point, identify what makes you, you. So it's taken me a long time to get to know who I am, and I can honestly say that what I wish I knew in my early 20s is that it's okay to still be figuring things out in your 30s, 40s, and beyond. Show me someone who has it all worked out, and I will show you a liar. Because life doesn't come with an instruction manual, and we're all just figuring it out as we go along. The reason why I asked you in the last point to think about who you are not is that that will then give you clues about who you are. So for example, I know that I never ever want to work in the corporate sector again. No shade to the business world, but it's just not for me anymore. I've been there, done that, got the t-shirt and the trauma. But then that makes me stop and think, why? And considering that question leads me to the conclusion that it's because A, I like to do creative work, and B, I enjoy doing work that feels purposeful and meaningful and where I don't have to answer to anyone else about what I do or don't do. So it's all of those things together, combined with my unique ability to turn an 80s or a 90s song lyric into a piece of philosophy, that makes me who I am. So take some time to do what the Spice Girls suggested and ask yourself, who do you think you are? Okay, next, set realistic expectations for yourself and others. Do you need to have the perfect life? Do you need 3 million followers on Instagram to be happy? No. Look, I think that for most of us, having a clear sense of identity, so really knowing who we are and who we aren't, and then making better life decisions accordingly, are the keys to greater satisfaction. Because when you do that, you begin to make choices that are much less about your bank balance and more about making your soul sing, which is such a nicer way to live. That leads to my next point. Be true to your heart. Because nobody knows you like you know you, you know? You are a unique and special individual, and there's no point trying to be something or someone that you're not. Because A, that's going to lead you to feel miserable, and B, what's the point? Life is such a precious gift that if you spend it trying to deny who you truly are, then you're wasting the opportunity to be who you truly are. And it's your uniqueness that is your gift to the world, because you have a moral responsibility to yourself and to the world to share the unique gifts that you were born with. And to deny them would be to deny the truth of who you really are. My view on life is pretty simple. If you're someone who does no harm to others or yourself, if you're kind to others and to yourself, and if you give more than you take from others and from yourself, then you're a pretty amazing person, and I don't care what you look like, where you come from, or how you identify. Be honest with yourself and be authentically you, because that's how you find true satisfaction in life. And don't try to be something or someone that you're not, or something that feels wrong to you. In the words of the great Oscar Wilde, be yourself. Everyone else is already taken. Okay, next, be flexible and willing to grow, because you are never the same as you were yesterday, nor will you be the same tomorrow. We all change and we all grow, so be flexible about adapting your sense of identity in order to make the most out of all of the opportunities that life presents to us along the way. And if that means that you have to let go of some of your older beliefs that no longer serve you, then do so with grace and be grateful that you are a human being who is capable of free thought and the ability to grow and evolve. So I talk about building a better relationship with yourself in my book, Let's Talk About Mental Health Volume 1, which is available on Amazon and Apple Books, and it's linked in the episode description below. And once you know who you are and what you stand for in life, it can help you to build your sense of self-worth, which is what I cover in this video. So watch that next to find out how to improve your self-worth for better mental health. And you'll find even more tips for figuring out your identity in episode 30 of the Let's Talk About Mental Health podcast, which is linked below. Thanks so much for joining me today. Take care and talk to you next time.